become clear overnight that a lot of people did not understand what I was talking about yesterday. I don't know, maybe that Mariner's rhyme is an old book about the albatross hanging around the guy's neck, but the idea, I think, is it was a constant burden that he had to bear. And that is what I'm saying Eric Adams is to Donald Trump. By latching himself to Eric Adams, I believe Donald Trump has made a hopefully not politically fatal error, but it's a bad one and it's getting worse. So I see a lot of people in the comments on X, and if you're not following on X, you can do that at JG_CSTT. If you're just going to watch, Bill O'Reilly tell, who was it? Glenn Beck. Oh, Eric Adams knows where the bodies are buried. Then you're an idiot. Because repeating that, that's like sending me an email. It's just like, follow the money. Do you think you know something when you say that? Is that helpful? Honestly, it makes me think you're stupid. Follow the money. What does that mean? That's like telling me the sky is blue. Anybody can say that. The point I was getting at yesterday, and people are like, oh, but it was dismissed without prejudice, so it can be brought back. I mean, if you've been paying attention, you're going to know that was the first thing that I said was like, wait a minute, what kind of plea arrangement involves dismissal without prejudice? I guess maybe they do that. I don't know. Lawyers can weigh in, but I can tell that the people commenting aren't lawyers. Most of the time, people who are smart lawyers, they don't email me. Sometimes, after years, they'll send a message saying like, hey, I watch and I like your insights, but I don't want anybody to know my political this or that. And, how do I fix my subscription to Odyssey or something like that? That's the overwhelming majority of messages I've gotten from people who are lawyers who I don't know are stuff like that. Because there's a lot of people who just, again, Bill O'Reilly, maybe he's fine. I think he's kind of a washed up old idiot. Anything he's ever said about JFK seems to be nonsense, and he's a real loudmouth. But this notion that Eric Adams, and I know a lot of people say, oh, Tom Homan said the charges are ridiculous. Well, I mean, again, Tom Homan, he's like a hammer drill. There's something very specific you use that tool for, and what's happening, fellas? Those guys had a little rap going or something. I don't know. The point is, you need a specific tool for a specific job. Now, we're very close to Kathy Hochul's stupid office, where she's called this little kind of like con sofrito summit. Because people are like, oh yeah, no, this is good. Let's all get on the side. These are all, Democrat prosecutors who are quitting. What I'm saying is, this is a staged incident designed to cripple the Department of Justice and make it impossible for Donald Trump to make a move in any direction. And when I say that this, linking himself, get that fucking bicycle off the sidewalk, you piece of shit. When I say Donald Trump linking himself to Eric Adams, why are you guys riding bicycles on the sidewalk? Go back to Africa. Why isn't ICE arresting these guys? You come here from a foreign country where there's no laws, riding bicycles on the sidewalk where there's no insurance and people just go to the hospital and die. How are these guys improving our society? Again, this is that whole, slave labor class where everybody's upset that their housekeepers and lawn maintenance company is going to get deported. So people are like, oh, it's dismissed without prejudice. The point is, the whole thing has been done improperly, and it calls this guy Emil Bove into question. And see, instead of just presuming that Donald Trump knows everything and is involved in every single aspect that every agency is doing. I don't just presume that. I'm wondering, do we have deep state lawfare operatives infiltrating Donald Trump? Infiltrating his inner circle? I think it's a safe bet that they're constantly trying to do that. In fact, you'd be a fool to presume that they're done with that. Now it's 5:19. Did I pass it? No, 7:19. What's the address of this stupid office? It doesn't really matter. This Kathy Hochul meeting might be over. 9:19. It's still up this way. The point is, what I had explained to everyone while it was unfolding is happening now. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, see, I'm Nostradamus or whatever. I'm not trying to put points on the board for the accuracy of my prediction. I'm trying to explain that we're at step 2 of a 100-step process that's going to be bad for Trump. Right, so Tom Homan, he's there these charges against Eric Adams are ridiculous. Well, guess what? He has no idea. He sits there with a lawyer who somebody says, Tom, this is our lawyer who we trust. He's been through all the documents, and here's what he says. Right? That's how these type of things work. Everybody has their expertise. Now, what the hell is this? This is, I don't know, it's just people waiting to go somewhere. Strange. But the way those things work is, if Tom Homan needs to defuse a bomb or whatever, I'm sure he calls in a bomb specialist. Maybe he never met the guy. But people who work for him, who he trusts, who are in charge of finding experts like this, say that's the bomb expert. Okay, he's going in the room to defuse the bomb, and yeah, we put our trust in him. If somebody is motivated to insert a saboteur into the bomb squad, you're about to get blown up. But I'm just saying, it's pretty normal for somebody who's in charge like that, whether it's Tom Homan or Donald Trump or whatever, you get your team and you say, boom, that's the team, we trust them. So this legal team that's headed by Emil Bove until a few days ago when Pam Bondi took over, who admitted on her first day that she knows nothing about the details of this extremely important case. See, we can tell we've got a federal building here just by the way it looks, and it's got the post office in it. I don't know what that building is, but I don't think that's it. And my point is, I didn't just stick my finger up in the wind and listen to Bill O'Reilly and, 2 or 3 other people, Jonathan Turley and Dersh, and decide, I've now seen all sides of the argument, and that's 9:09. And because I'm such an avid consumer of news, I'm well informed. No, what I'm talking about is I've already been through 20% of the judges in that Southern District of New York court. And I'm not saying I know everything about everything, but I've got a sense for how that corrupt shithole operates. And we had this morning a ruling from Judge Ho, which, as I presumed, and as Andrew Weissman specified, see, that's the thing. I'm not just holding my finger up to the wind. I'm looking at what the people who are engaged in lawfare, who we know are persistently engaged in lawfare, I'm looking at what those scumbags are up to. What are they saying? What are they doing? And what happens next? Because they're messaging to the judge. whether deliberately or, directly or indirectly, do we really think
My people, you know how many
Darren, right? Is Darren Ho not watching MSNBC to see what sort of stupid crap Andrew Weissman is talking about? It's got to be that, right? That's 909. One Medical. It's funny, I've been seeing that around a lot lately. There's a lot of One Medical, whatever that business is, coming in. Anyway, I don't really know where Kathy Hochul's office is around here. It doesn't matter that much. I just wanted it as backdrop, and certainly if we see anybody interesting like Q-tip head Al Sharpton, 27, but the phone said it feels like 7. Now wait a minute, we must have passed it here. 960. So where the hell is 919? Oh, there it is. It's that. So I guess the meeting is over or everybody's gone. That's fine. I mean, like I said, it's interesting that Chase Bank is in that building. That's owned by the New York State something or other. There was, because I was looking for this address, and there was an article here talking about how Kathy Hochul recently moved the office to this building, and I figured, oh, that's probably a waste of money because everything she does is. But this is co-owned by the New York State Pension Fund, which actually might be a private thing. Just because they call it New York State Pension Fund doesn't mean it actually is owned by the state or necessarily has anything to do with the state. I mean, that's, I'm sure, a whole kind of exploration that people could go down. So people are talking about ex parte communications. Homan isn't a cabinet member. That's right. He doesn't need to be confirmed. I like Homan too, but that doesn't mean he's a lawyer, and that doesn't mean he knows the details of stupid Eric Adams' case. Homan wants to get something done, which is to crack skulls. Homan is a cop. I believe that. You see it in how he acts, what he does, what he says. It's like, even when, I don't blame him for this. I'm just pointing this out. Because we need this tension. The cops pushing one way and defenders of the Constitution pushing the other way. That kind of tension is healthy. Because we want Tom Homan and his people pushing as hard as they can to enforce the law. And then, like, I don't really like to quote Elon Musk because I'm not 100% on board with him, but he does have some good methods, and he says that if you're developing something and you don't make any mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. So likewise, if Tom Homan doesn't get pushback from defenders of the Constitution while he's trying to enforce the law, he's not trying hard enough. Look at that. What's that weird stuff at the top of this building? Maybe very thin offices? Could be. Seems like a pain in the ass if you want to go to the office down the hall. You got to go down 10 floors and then back up. Anyway, what I mean is, Tom Homan is like, oh, AOC did a webinar explaining to people who are illegally in the country. I mean, you have some rights when you're here, right? You visit the country, you're not suddenly a non-person who can just be beaten and robbed by a citizen and the cops don't do anything. So obviously you have some rights. And if AOC, somebody raised this point. I mean, initially I was on Tom Homan's side of this argument, but then I realized actually, no, he's wrong. AOC is exercising the First Amendment to tell people to act within the context of the law to avoid whatever they're doing. I guess if she had people in her house, that would be a different thing. I mean, if she was like, I don't know, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the point is, Tom Homan was like, oh, AOC is going to jail. So I'm saying, for that guy to want to put everybody in jail, it's kind of some aspect of that is what we want from a cop. And then on the other side of that equation would be constitutional attorneys or immigration attorneys, pushing back against that, fighting for whatever. But my point is, what we're going to have tomorrow is a hearing. We always knew that this judge was the final say in does the case get dropped or not. And the thing that's crazy is, if the DOJ wants to drop it and the judge says no, then what? Because the judge, now we've got this other guy, Ackerman, I think his name is, who came in there. So here's another hint that this is lawfare and that this is not going the way Donald Trump wants it to go. Remember when General Flynn was in the process of getting jammed up? Emmett Sullivan. This Eric Adams issue is General Flynn 2.0 for Trump. And you know what? I'm not blaming him for getting trapped by the same trick twice. Because this is what they do. They've got a way of dressing up the scenery to make it look like a totally different play. And then before you know it, you're sitting in the audience and you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this thing before. What am I talking about? Well, I think a lot of people now realize that General Flynn was never on Donald Trump's side. General Flynn, it appears, my opinion, based on public domain evidence that I've seen, that Flynn refuses to address. If I were wrong, just like the cops in Beaver County, he should want to show us the proper explanation to clarify that Jason doesn't know what he's talking about, but he doesn't do that. He just blocks me, and just like the cops in Beaver, they don't want to talk about it. But the point is, that was a case where Michael Flynn shows up and he's like, hey, I used to be a Democrat, but they done me wrong, and I'm on your side now. I know where the bodies are buried. Right? He should go call Bill O'Reilly. It's a damn fine vehicle, the M4 or whatever this is here. Any M BMW is generally pretty good. But you got a Democrat wolf in sheep's clothing coming to Trump saying, oh, the Democrats have done me wrong and now I'm on your side. Then that guy gets jammed up. And they're like, oh, lawfare. And they, meaning us, Trump supporters, are intended to get sucked in and be sympathetic to that person and say, oh, look at the horrible Democrats taking revenge against their former person because he's helping Trump. We got to stand with this guy. And it galvanizes the Trump support for the rogue lawfare player, in this case, Mayor Adams, previously moron criminal Michael Flynn, but it's much of the same kind of crap. You better get your order in for the Ferrari here. This is this new hybrid 296. It is cool as hell. So, oh, look. Poor sangue. I was trying to convince Charles to buy two of these. Ha! That's the Ferrari SUV. Everybody says it's killer. 65-degree V12. I think, yeah, 725 horsepower. Definitely get two if you can afford it. Send me one. You don't have to do that, but I wouldn't say no. By the way, nobody has to send me a $400,000 car. You can just become a sponsor for as little as $3 a month plus a 58-cent Odyssey fee that goes to Odyssey. That's the most economical way to sponsor Crowdsource the Truth. You can do that, odyssey.com/@Crowdsource the Truth. Use your regular credit card until the end of the month. Then there's apparently going to be some new payment system coming in that I don't yet have the details of, but anybody who's worried about that, doesn't want to deal with any kind of change, you could go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com crowdsource the truth. Let's continue exploring the similarities between what's happening right now with Eric Adams and what happened previously with Michael Flynn. The reason I'm saying this is because, you see, we've now been embedded in this lawfare environment for 8 years, okay? And it's like, you remember that girl, Amanda Knox? She was this college girl who was in Italy, and the roommate got killed. They blamed it on her, but then it wasn't her. I really didn't follow all the details of the case. I mean, I think she was eventually exonerated. A lot of screwy business going on there. The reason I bring it up is because this is an American college girl who did not speak Italian when she went into jail, and by the end of the thing, she's sitting there in court, you know, fluently speaking Italian, because if you just sit in jail for 10 years getting exposed, I think you just learn to speak Italian like each of us. Just, you know, embedded in this wretched lawfare environment. We're just exposed to it for 8 years. We're going to learn things. So what have we learned? Well, we know they want to control your attorney. They want to control both sides of the caption. How do they do that? We're seeing lots of different ways. But in that screwy case with Michael Flynn, at a certain point, you know, something weird happened where all the Dershowitzes and Turleys were like, this is unprecedented. So then Emmett Sullivan comes out and he says, oh, we're going to hire a special prosecutor. And people said, wait, what? Nobody's ever done that before. And he's like, I'm a judge. Bing, do it. And they brought in that idiot, I forget his name, started prosecuting even though the Department of Justice didn't want to. This is how they hope to resolve this impasse of everybody resigning. And see, this is the other thing. They've created a situation where lots of people are like, no, it's good that they're resigning. These are all Joe Biden prosecutors. Well, yes, but at the same point, you can't prosecute anybody if all of the prosecutors resign. Now, maybe this is something that we needed, but Donald Trump better get on the stick, hiring lots and lots of lawyers to get in there and prosecute all the people that we need to prosecute. But then even then, how do you know those lawyers are any good? So what we're witnessing right now, I believe, is a stranglehold that's tightening around the Donald Trump presidency. And we're seeing the details of how these unelected bureaucrats intend to control and limit his ability to do things. And what's the number one thing that he's been talking about doing is prosecuting them. So kneecapping the Department of Justice and making it impractical, impossible, politically, you know, not advantageous to prosecute anybody appears to be what they are in the process of doing. And by the way, it's working pretty well. The news is going to be going on and on about how, oh, Donald Trump's DOJ is out of control. And by the way, I'm not blaming this on Trump. I think this is Emil Bove. I believe he set this all off, because the other thing that happened was we had some filings this morning. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh yeah, we got to get to that. Several filings this morning. There were, well, I have it on X. People who are following me on X might have seen that. If you're not, you can also subscribe on X at JG_CSTT. See, somebody told me they closed all the Microsoft stores, and I was like, no, they didn't. And they were like, yes, they did. And then eventually sent me a thing where it turns out they closed every single store except for that one, and I think one other, maybe in Seattle. So we were kind of both right, because this was an article saying that Microsoft is announcing that they're closing all the stores, and then below the headline it said except for that one and the other one. But so we got this guy, Nate Ackerman, who's coming in now as an amicus curiae. Now, this is amazing, but that guy is going to be assigned to be this special prosecutor to investigate all this stuff. They're saying he is a Watergate era prosecutor. Okay, so is that a reason to trust him or distrust him? Watergate was one of the screwiest. You know, that's another Gordian knot of lies. So this is not smart. You can't walk down the street and ignore your gaggle of 4 kids behind you. Something dangerous could happen to those kids. But so that guy Ackerman shows up and he files a whole big letter about how he wants to come in as an amicus curiae, and the judge has called for a hearing tomorrow because remember, the whole reason why the judge has to allow this dismissal to happen is to prevent exactly what I'm saying they're trying to do, some sort of corrupt deal that allows the people in the DOJ to do something that they shouldn't do. The judge is there as a bulwark against that. What is this? Museum of what? Oh, this is a Museum of Modern Art. This is just a field trip or something. Dropped off in a Bentley. But what's going to happen is the judge gets to decide if the case is dropped or not. And if nobody in the DOJ wants to prosecute it, Emil Bove and this guy Ackerman will. Apparently. So that's pretty crazy. Then the other thing is, the judge, in the order where he called for this hearing tomorrow, he said, hey, by the way, you know, you're supposed to have an acknowledgement from the defendant saying that he wants the case to be dismissed, and Emil Bove didn't include that. So then Elon Musk's attorney, who's shared by Eric Adams, Turkish ride-sharing app board member Alex Spiro, he shows up with a letter where he's like, hey, Mr. Cotter, we sent the letter from Eric Adams saying, yeah, okay, I want to drop the case, and Emil Bove forgot to attach it. So I'm thinking, like, what is with this guy, Emil Bove? I mean, I get it. It's difficult to be a lawyer, but he's supposed to be an expert. Now, I always think about these things in terms of my life on set as a cinematographer. And if the first AC, if the camera assistants showed up at Amazing Spider-Man, and I said, okay, load the memory, or put the battery on the camera, and they were like, oh, we forgot that. It's like, oh, what? You are fired, and no one is ever going to hire you again, because that's about the stupidest, most incompetent thing I could imagine. And it seems to me that an emotion like this, particularly after such a big deal has been made out of it for so long, how could you forget to attach the letter from the defendant? It just seems, what the hell is wrong with Emil Bove? And again, it takes me back to people say, oh, this guy was Donald Trump's defense attorney. Doesn't matter. I don't think Trump knows the guy that well. I think Trump was put in a situation like I was, where virtually no lawyer will take your case. And so you're scraping the bottom of the barrel to find any lawyer at all. And when one says, okay, I'll represent you, you're like, oh my God, thank goodness, I finally have a lawyer. And then you get into business with that lawyer and they start handling things. There's a real tendency, I think, I see this in other people and I've experienced this myself, that you offload all of that psychological baggage and effort that you can't handle anyway because you're not a lawyer. You offload it to this trusted person, and then they tell you things and you just say, okay. I mean, I was quite convinced that it was a big deal that George's asshole, wife-swapping, mentally ill, paperclip Nazi brother had come up with a fake company, and that the Emmys sued that same exact fake company. I knew that was a big deal, but my lawyer kept saying it doesn't matter. And you got to either fire this lawyer or you relent and say, okay, he must know. Is this a TRX? I don't think so. Too small. TRD. Oh yeah, no, that's a TRD Pro would be the Toyota one. That's not it. TRX is the Dodge. Now this is Mastro's now. This used to be McCormick and Schmick, which is a terrible restaurant. I don't understand how that stays in business in any city that it's in, but obviously here it went out. So I don't know. I hope I'm getting through to people. I don't know that it's going to make too much of a difference because it's kind of too late. This has already started. I mean, I've been sounding the alarm on this. I've been saying since Eric Adams was indicted that this is a big deal, pointing out that why did Elon Musk's attorney not represent him in Goodman versus the city of New York? It seems related. And so many people are over there on X like, Donald Trump knows everything. Trust the whatever. It's basically saying trust the plan. Follow the money. Trump knows everything. Trump doesn't know everything. I'm not saying I'm smarter than Trump. I'm saying it's impossible for the person at the top to know everything. Well, exactly. Fire the lawyer, Dilbert. What I'm saying is the only way that I see that this can be saved would be for Pam Bondi to hold a press conference and say we've reviewed the entire case and Emil Bove is being removed and fired and we are resuming the prosecution. We're hiring all new attorneys to fill these U.S. attorney roles for all these people who have quit. And I mean, look, people have raised questions about Pam Bondi. I don't know. She's in charge. Let her pick the lawyers. But we got to get rid of Emil Bove. It just seems obvious to me that this guy is creating the problem. And I don't think it's a matter of him not knowing what he's doing. I think he is a lawfare practitioner. And I say that because it's not like he's some guy that Donald Trump has known for 30 years. This is a guy, I've said it many times, he worked at Sullivan and Cromwell, the law firm that created the CIA. Then he clerked in the Southern District of New York. Then he clerked in the Second Circuit. So this guy is as much of an SDNY swamp rat as anybody else. And also, Bove was prosecuting January 6th people before he became a criminal defense attorney, which there's some controversy surrounding that, too. I don't think this guy Bove is such a great guy. So now what's going to happen is just as big a mess as possible is going to be made out of this. It's going to be hung around Donald Trump's neck for him to deal with. And for all the people who, when I say this is going to result in an impeachment of Donald Trump, I stand by that. I don't mean next week. People were like, no, because Republicans control the House, they're never going to impeach him. First of all, 2 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye, particularly in terms of time in court. And I'm just saying, you're going to see how many Republicans, once they start saying like, oh, look at this is huge corruption. Look at what Eric Adams was doing. They'll get this Ackerman guy to start exposing all kinds of stuff. I mean, first of all, I don't think this deal with Turkey and receiving bribes was as inconsequential as they're trying to make it seem. Maybe it's inconsequential when compared to, that guy, what's his name with the gold bars from New Jersey, Menendez. Sure, maybe it's lower dollar amount than that or something. But the point is, that's just one of the crimes. The straw donors scheme is a big deal. And Eric Adams wanted the flow of migrants into New York City because what it did was it caused all of that money, whether it's from USAID or other things, to flow to nonprofit agencies that then needed to hire security guards and laundry services and all kinds of companies that very likely were kicking money back to Eric Adams. So he wanted as many migrants flowing into the city as possible. He doesn't care about crime. He's driving around in a bulletproof SUV with cops protecting him. Nothing's going to happen to him. He doesn't care if you get shot or run over by an electric bike, injured, maimed, whatever. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He just wants migrants to flow into the city so that millions of dollars will come from government agencies, and so he can put Molly Wausau Park in charge of the Department of Social Services. This lady apparently is going to play Jesus Christ in Godspell. I'm so glad I never watch movies anymore. They've just become crap. I'm very confident that this is what's going to happen. And I get annoyed when people who watch Bill O'Reilly and MSNBC just tell me, oh no, here's all this legal mumbo jumbo that I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading the comments here. Right, and now we got Andrew Cuomo running for mayor. Holy crap. Talk about another disaster, out of the frying pan into the fire. This is going to result in a big mess for Donald Trump. Tomorrow will be just the first day in court over this Eric Adams nonsense. And the purpose of it, of course, is to just break the DOJ. Think about it. What is it that Norm Eisen and Andrew Weissman and Ben Wittes and all the top Lawfare players are most afraid of right now? They're afraid of Donald Trump turning the power of the U.S. government against them. You know, if those guys get put on trial and put in jail and put through the system, they know how powerful that is once it gets started on you. And so what they're trying to do is just create chaos and disarray so that Trump can't do that. And guess what? It's already started to work. So here we are in Times Square. Everybody still hates Chris. It looks like Chris Rock has a new show coming out. Could be funny. He's funny. I wonder if they'll have any Will Smith jokes in that. Everybody still hates him. I'm very upset about this because I think it could have been avoided. And by the way, this is going to substantially derail the Trump agenda of, you know, prosecuting the lawfare criminals that jammed him up. And obviously that's, oh look, Glenn Ross. I really don't like Broadway shows, but that's a really pretty interesting play. I recommend the movie with Alec Baldwin yelling at Jack Lemmon, I think. Look at that. You see, it's a little bit sad to see, oh, the poster went away. But it was Christian Slater now cast in a sitcom as the dad. If you're my age, that will make you feel old. He's a nice guy, Christian Slater. For the 10 minutes he came by the Spider-Man set and said hello to everybody. It was nice to me. Hasn't been to jail, as far as I know. It's a pretty good track record for how long he's been around. Yeah, but tomorrow we're going to have chaos down there at the Southern District of New York. And once again, it's going to be all about Trump in court, right? These guys are lawyers. So you know that whole saying about how when you're a hammer, every problem has to be a nail? That's what they're doing here. They're just getting Trump back into court by whatever mechanism they can muster. That is the purpose of lawfare, by the way. To just occupy you in court which they control, by the way. They have 1 million lawyers, 1 million retired prosecutors, 1 million different, it's like Gulliver's Travels, right? Trump controls the presidency. We'll get every lawyer in the nation against him. Not every lawyer, but it's a pretty tightly controlled group. Oh, is this Born Identity? Oh no, Daredevil, Born Again. So what do people think about this? Do you actually think that Eric Adams is going to walk out of court and everything's going to go back to normal and he's going to be able to help Donald Trump do anything? By the way, here's another thing to debunk one of the arguments that a lot of stupid people are talking about. And another reason why it's lawfare. So the first thing to debunk the stupid argument, some idiot had a comment on X this morning where they're like, the DOJ gives people immunity all the time. Here's the thing. They do that when a person has discretion. And what I mean is, keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer. I could be wrong. You turn this off and not listen to anything I say, if you choose. But here's how that works. Let's say the cops arrest somebody selling $10 worth of heroin on the street. And they say, hey, $10 heroin guy, you're going to go to jail for 5 years. Why don't you tell us where you got the heroin from? And the guy says, I don't want to say anything until I get a lawyer. Or the lawyer tells him, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, you don't have to be compelled to incriminate yourself. So you can say nothing when they ask you these questions. You've got discretion. It's your choice to exercise the Fifth Amendment. You could say, I'm not telling you anything. I found that $10 bag on the street. You can say whatever you want. It's your discretion. So then what they might do is they might say, well, since we saw you standing outside a building that we know is producing millions of dollars worth of heroin, what we're prepared to do is offer you a deal where we will exercise discretion and choose not to prosecute you for this $10 crime. Choose to waive your Fifth Amendment. Everything we want to.
Yeah, no, that's what he said to me.
Yeah. Tell you everything. Work. Reasonable way to conduct a Justice Department if it leads to the arrest of serious criminals by letting off somebody who maybe at the end of all that would say, you know what? I shouldn't have been selling those $10 bags. Let me stay out of trouble. And then you go arrest 20 other people who are manufacturing it. That makes sense. But this is vastly different than what was going on with Eric Adams, because the mayor of New York City does not have discretion. He can't choose to follow the... Who the hell is that person? He can't choose to follow federal law or not in the way that you could go into court and choose to exercise your Fifth Amendment rights or not. Even the mayor of New York City has to abide by federal law. Now, I was saying yesterday, this has been sort of tested a little bit in that, the states have passed certain laws about marijuana that the federal government has decided, hey, we're not going to spend the resources going around the country arresting people for marijuana, particularly in states where everybody has voted and said, we wanted. It's just this sort of vestigial law hanging around that society has sort of come to agree essentially that we're not going to enforce. I mean, that's a separate, that's a whole other discussion to have about marijuana advocacy and states' rights and the law, etc. But the point is, a state cannot pass a law that legally supersedes a federal law. It's not like the mayor can choose to follow a law or not. And by the way, that's where ICE has said, hey, we're coming to New York City and we're going to do this whether the mayor, not just New York City, all these sanctuary cities, they said they're going to operate in these cities whether the cops and the mayors want them to or not. I don't think we've really seen the full extent of testing that. Well, what happens when the cops don't? I mean, the cops haven't said that they're going to fight the federal agents who try to arrest people. They just said they're not going to help. So, I mean, again, you can't enter into a deal with somebody, particularly not somebody who's the mayor. That gets into all these other aspects of the law, where the $10 drug dealer, he's not the mayor, and you're not asking him to do something as a result of his political, you can't say, oh, well, now because I'm mayor, I got off for doing all these crimes. There's just so much wrong with this. It's incredible. Nobody at all, including Donald Trump, should be supporting Eric Adams or this idiot Emil Bove. I mean, this is just a total own goal. Pam Bondi is the one that I blame because, she became involved with this right in the nick of time. What she should have done is left that press conference where she admitted that she didn't know what was going on, sit in a room with the entire file and read the thing herself and become familiar with it, and then look at what was going on with Mohammed Bahi and all these guys who were getting ready to testify. This is not nothing there. This is not a political prosecution. This is the most epic lawfare assault on Trump yet. I mean, I can't express through words the frustration that I feel from the Turleys and the other people out there who are like, oh, Trump won, lawfare lost. No, it didn't. It reconfigured itself. They're constantly looking for new attack vectors, and that's exactly what this Eric Adams conundrum is. Anybody who doesn't see that doesn't see the full picture. Nate hopes somebody gets this out to Trump. I've contacted people who have the ability to do that. And part of the problem is a lot of people are just so caught up in the... I'll give you two prime examples, Matt Taibbi and Mike Benz. Nate says he doesn't trust Pam Bondi. That's fair. We've heard some pretty interesting things from people who have no reason to lie and have cited stuff that can easily be checked. Remember, Joel Gilbert told us the other day about that really serious failing Pam Bondi did with the whole Trayvon Martin case. That was terrible. And I think the same thing is happening again. She's just kowtowing to public pressure. Here's two NYPD traffic officers. You see this guy riding the skateboard on the sidewalk? You see that? You didn't see that? You were talking to this guy? What? What are you saying?
If I did, I would have said something.
Yeah, I'm saying you look like an obese, do-nothing loser. People are riding skateboards on the sidewalk and you're on a walk to get another donut. Do you idiots do anything? Of course not. They just don't do anything. So, I mean, this is a mess. Okay? I was talking about something before that skateboard rolled along. You know, when I was heading up there to Kathy Hochul's office, what did I see? There was a tree with like Christmas lights in it, and they had something like 6 people working to remove the Christmas lights. It was really unbelievable. Six people, and it was some contractor hired by the city, 2 guys standing there looking at 4 guys on ladders removing these lights. Now, I mean, this wasn't that big of a tree. Seems like 2 guys could have taken all the lights out of the tree. I mean, what is the city paying to have people removing lights from trees? I don't know, maybe Eric Adams' buddies own meter maids, right? It's just overweight, obese. Honestly, we need some serious physical fitness requirements for every single person in the NYPD. And if you can't meet them, you should be fired immediately. You know, those guys do nothing. Those cops should run to a person riding a skateboard on the sidewalk and give him a ticket. He could barely breathe, exactly. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. There's going to be a ton of people over there in court tomorrow. The other thing that all these people making this evaluation don't know is that they don't know anything about Goodman versus the city of New York. You see those guys? Totally blacked out face masks with sunglasses, eyeballing me. Look up and down. Why was that? Are they trying to evaluate if I'm wearing some kind of armor like they are? See, they know. They're like, oh, let's check this guy for weak spots. Does he have knee pads? Does he have, you know, I don't know. So now Michael Jackson. I can't believe this. Right here on 7th Avenue. This is prime retail space. These 10-cent stores are normally on side streets, way downtown. See, they're so focused on continuing to steal the money. There were more incredible revelations from the Department of Government Efficiency, something like $4 trillion going to unaccountable whatevers. Obviously, all of this money is just stewing around somewhere, gets sent to this nonprofit, that nonprofit, hires this. Oh yeah. Where'd the sound go? Huh. Screwy things happening with sound. So, right. So we had an amicus filing from Ackerman, who wants to basically act in the same role as that independent prosecutor that Emmett Sullivan brought in at the end of the Flynn trial. Yeah, I guess we have a Mercedes dealership coming here. Then there was another amicus filing from all of these U.S. attorneys who quit the Southern District of New York, and it's loaded with all the evidence from this case. And they are filing, they've got this nonprofit company here called Free and Fair Litigation Group. So this thing is paying, this thing, and this thing has, you know, millions of dollars going into it. I don't know who these people are. We've got our buddy Daniel Frost here. I looked him up on X. Here's Free and Fair Litigation. This guy was the former senior advisor and comms director for the Manhattan District Attorney. You know who that is? Alvin. What's my audio here all of a sudden? So this guy used to work for Alvin Bragg. Do you really want to be on the side? I mean, so people are going to say, right, we're going against Alvin Bragg. This is what's so confusing about this, is that I'm not saying we should be on the side of Alvin Bragg. I'm just saying this is a lawfare play. Everybody involved is team lawfare. The prosecutors. It's really bad. So look, I'm not saying I have the whole thing figured out, and there's obviously tons of elements to this, but we're heading down the wrong road here. Eric Adams, not the guy. Because, by the way, has Kathy Hochul removed him yet? They're trying to get Trump into checkmate, where whatever he does, they have the ability to, make it look like he's done something bad to further the corruption of Eric Adams. Let's see. Has Hochul done anything yet? 2 hours ago. 4 hours ago. Apparent about face on natural gas. No, we don't care about that. Apparent about face on natural gas is NYC utility signaled major rate hikes. And she's going to weigh removing Eric Adams. That's what I mean. They're trying to position Trump into a checkmate where whichever direction he goes in, he's going to lose. And they're pretty close to having him there. Oh yeah, so this is where all this new Madison Square Garden radio stuff starts to really interfere. Stay in your car, idiot! Go deal with this guy, please. That guy. These cops are doing nothing. God. Eric Adams needs to be plucked. And Donald Trump, this was the stupidest thing you could have done. Emil Bove needs to be very carefully looked at. Should not be trusted. Southern District of New York prosecutor, embedded in the Southern District of New York court. Why did Donald Trump hire this guy? How does Pam Bondi not see what's going on? Why did Alina Habba's office do nothing with all the material I sent them about the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt? I met her at a dinner, and she said, oh, we spoke at length. She was very polite, and she was like, oh, contact my office. Never heard anything. I mean, are all these people just so preoccupied with riding on Air Force One and getting on the news and being famous while they ignore all this stuff that's going to absolutely sink their golden egg laying goose? It's a terrible scenario. And meanwhile, none of these people are doing anything. Why didn't Letitia James, why didn't she bring state charges against Eric Adams? Why didn't Alvin Bragg? Why does he need this guy who used to work for him, who's running a nonprofit? Are people starting to see how the deep state works? If you no longer have your government job, you can just sidestep to an NGO, a tax-exempt, nonprofit, non-government organization. See now, that guy looked like he was looking at me. A government that receives money from all the same things that you don't work for anymore, and is driven by people like Norm Eisen and all this kind of stuff. It's seems very clear to me that that's what's happening. And this is going to be a mess for Donald Trump. They should have continued with the prosecution of Eric Adams. He's got to fire Emil Bove. This is a mess. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Please become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Don't forget, you can also subscribe on X @JG_CSTT.